Hello, Ren. Okay.
Well, I just want to start by saying, like, it was really, really good.
Red light means it's on. Okay.
I'm going to answer each question in order, I think.
Because it's your home. I mean, I've been here before for different reasons, but knowing that you feel really safe here, I think, is a really important part of this particular piece of work.
I don't have much to say, but I think that obviously the film was beautiful, and it felt like I was overhearing someone tell someone a secret that I wasn't supposed to hear. I'm happy to have heard it anyway.
Okay, that's a good start. It's on. So, some thoughts before I look at the questions. What were the words that came to me? Pain, journey, spirals going up as well as down. Alone, but also that constant perseverance and determination. So to keep going and keep finding a way, and then eventually that leading to some light and light. So that were kind of things that were going to remind us. I was watching what was really emotional, very powerful, and felt quite a raw expression of what I must have been feeling and going through and trying to express. So how did you find a showing in someone's house? I loved it. Loved the intimacy. I loved how it looks like it's allowed you to be very, very expressive. I'm your mum, so I know that expressing some feelings for you can be difficult, and so that's amazing to see you using your art to express yourself to that depth, and it was very deep.
Trying to feel weightless when you feel really heavy, and like voyeurism into yourself, I think was. I actually didn't realise anything about that, and then I was like sat in a basement watching it in the dark, and I was like, I'm actually just like kind of being like a little like voyeur to myself.
Challenge you to think about whether you might want to feel bold enough at some point, perhaps not now, but to feel bold enough to share that depth with everyone. So, question and challenge to you. Felt like you had put together a group of people that are important to you in lots of different ways, and that it made me feel quite special, that I'm part of that group and part of what is kind of felt like your trusted group, and therefore I was, yes, expecting something special, and it felt really special.
How did you find it showing in someone's house? I thought that showing in someone's house was more enjoyable for myself. It felt intimate.
I loved it.
The idea of bringing together like different people.
It feels much more like social and discursive.
It's a beautiful day. Everyone's like laughing outside and.
Okay, hi Rowan. I feel so honoured to have been invited to come see your film. It was really beautiful, and I feel feel very appreciative of the vulnerability that you shared with us, like through your shots, and yeah, I felt overwhelmed, and like it was very intense, along with like the constant layered images and like clips and the music. The music was incredible, truly. Like I love how it sort of built up to something slightly more steady towards the end and was super fragmented at the start. I understood exactly what you were trying to give there.
Knowing that you feel really safe in these places is an important part of the work, and I think that, you know, the work went from being in a home environment where obviously you feel really safe to then being in this more kind of curated exhibition type space.
Just showing it to the people that you care about, which I think like puts art in a different form, I guess.
Didn't feel as clinical as quite a lot of galleries can be.
I love it, to be honest. I think that we should maybe just not do galleries anymore. Well, maybe we should do galleries.
Because a lot of the time art is, you know, people want to show it to the masses and have it out there and see everyone's opinions, but I guess it kind of changes the meaning of the art.
If I viewed art in someone's house like once a week, that would be really great for me.
It's also interesting that the confession room is also in this room, because, you know, now I'm looking at the window and I'm like,
Yeah, we're involved.
we're involved, like I feel like we're sort of in the video, I guess.
It felt very raw. You know, even when you're kind of getting up and turning off the camera, and you kind of invite people into that space of knowing that you're actually recording something and you're kind of engaged.
The way scenes melted into each other, like, puts you in that headspace where you're like feeling something really intense, and it's like sort of the world is whizzing by and you have this intense feeling. But there was a moment where you got up and went to go turn off the camera, and like that to me is like, it's like having like a breakdown on your floor and then being like, feeling something really okay, I gotta get out now, like this is uncomfortable, I've been here for 45 minutes. It's like there was a moment where you got up and went to realizing also that I was like watching something, and like that to me is like had been constructed, it's like having like a breakdown, gazing at it and being like, oh okay, I gotta get out now, like this is uncomfortable, I've been here for 45 minutes.
First half
It's like
was very
this
kind
moment of like
screechy, jarring.
realizing
Like, there was
also
obviously a
that I was
beat
like
to it,
watching
but it was
something,
kind of
that this was like had been constructed,
super
and,
easy
like,
to listen to.
gazing at it.
And then it got very rhythmic, and it kind of like picked up, and it felt like you'd kind of picked yourself up, and you were kind of feeling yourself, feeling your body.
It was like when I was
I don't want to kind of bring it back to transness, but obviously like knowing you and how you've kind of changed over the past few years, and like grown into this version of yourself that feels more true and authentic, but also know myself like how hard that can be when you're curating an image, or when you're really vulnerable, when you're like half naked on a camera. That's really quite a difficult place to be in. So I think it felt really raw, and it made me feel really emotional, like seeing you.
Yeah, I can't really put words to it, but the chaos of trying to like grip onto that pole at the start, and the slipping, and the like inability to find stability, and then you're slowly coming to spin and become more steady, I think for me resonated with being quite a dark point of thought, and then being able to find some sort of like head above water. I loved seeing it in your house, and I loved seeing it with your friends, and I think everyone had a really great presence and gravity to it.
When you kind of found this new form, and it was like almost like it's too much, like, you know, like when I'm thinking about like when a horse gives birth, and it like has this little baby that's kind of like got these legs that are just like too long, and it can't, like, you know, it's got this body that it's supposed to know how to move, but it doesn't. And like this never-ending like recalibration of self, and like never being fixed or never being settled, and like always being in motion, and
like your head's just constantly spinning, and you're just constantly a different person.
I barely know you.
We don't know each other.
You were sharing something with me and with us about your personality, about your feelings, about your sexuality.
The fact that you put these here,
You were sharing
kind of read
an
these
element
and
of
compare what we
liberation and
learn
freedom
and
with us
see
as well,
here
which was
to
fantastic.
what we've just been shown
Really, really
downstairs
interesting.
is
I
like
like the heavy
one
stuff
of the
at the beginning
biggest,
and the light stuff. I
like-
love the spin at the end.
one of the most showing parts of it. That's what I think.
Quite striking in that there's something being told to me right here, but
So-
I can't quite understand what it is because there's quite a few different things.
There's something really like, there was so much vulnerability in the film and showing of like your, like all different moods, all different personas, all different selves, spanning chronological time but also like emotional time. And I feel like
It was quite an intimate portrayal into, you know, Rowan's mind, I guess, in her room, space.
it made me think about this quote that's like grabbing the greasy pole by both ends.
The pouring at it, you know, I felt like that was like, I guess, a trying to climb some, like trying to mount something, trying to like get higher on something but not being able to because of, you know, the skin.
Anyway, if I remember who it is who said that, I will tell you. Like the journey that Rowan has gone through this year and, you know, in the years beforehand, like that is part of what was shown today. However, I do think that there's like a larger investigation into, like self-growth and discovery, I guess, looking at who you are, who you were, and who you are becoming.
You know, acting, like, as you said, more or less queer is like, I think something that a lot of people who are queer go through, and like, especially when you're involved in especially like at school and stuff, because you're put with people you wouldn't normally hang out with. You're put into this group and you have to sort of, you feel shit.
Yeah.
What kind of considerations did you have when you were constructing the viewer? What categories are we in?
Sometimes it's easier. Sometimes it's easier
how
to be.
important that is, and just
Sometimes it's easier to be more queer or less queer in certain scenarios, and I think that like bringing people from different scenarios is good for me, and being like, I'm gonna try.
Like, sort of need to be consistent, want to be consistent, but that consistency is definitely something that I strive for.
Really thought about what you wanted to show, and I could feel things like in the room, like, oh, you know, knowing that your mum is there, knowing that your family is there.
A lot of the shots specifically reminded me of TS Cam Girls that I may or may not have used to watch. So that was a nice familiar feeling, and obviously the subject matter hits a bit close to home, and the main thing I want to talk about is the fact that prior to the film playing, I was sat next to Rowan's mother, who referred to her as him a lot, and I didn't even know who she was talking about at first, and said, who? And then she told me that it was difficult to get used to. So it was interesting watching a film that is obviously referring to experiences underpinned by gender. Sat next to someone who seemingly doesn't understand the author's gender at all. That was a bit. I had a bit of a trapped feeling, which felt a bit at odds with the end of the film, which felt very freeing. So now I'm left with a lot of pride and happiness for Rowan and how beautiful the film is,
The way scenes melted
and also a
into
bit of
each other, like puts you in that headspace.
anger at her family and my own. And just really nice to see someone make something that clearly started off from a place of a lot of upset and hurt, and end the film literally on a brighter note. But seeing Rowan in person, clearly feeling a lot better in general anyway as well. It's the same in the video as it is in real life. I just really liked it.
Started this project, so I didn't want to be like everything's happy and Larry and it's great. But there's a lot about spinning in that, and about
your body
spinning
has
is like
to
a positive
like
and a negative
dysphoria
thing. Like
itself.
the
It
idea
can
of, like,
feel very much like you see things that you don't want to see, or you're seeing. It can not always be a super comfortable experience when you feel a certain way about your body, and you know we have very different experiences, but in some ways quite aligned. And I think that like knowing that you'd filmed these things and then you'd cut things up and you edited them and you created this kind of thing that you wanted everyone to see, felt very special.
I live here, and I also saw parts of her filming. I hadn't seen a lot of the private stuff in her room because obviously like she did it secretively. Felt really personal. It felt quite emotional.
How am I portraying myself in the way that I move? You know, like I think I always think about like sensuality and sexuality as two very different things, and like sensuality being something that, you know, is very like inside you, and it's like more your body reacting to like how you feel in the moment, and you know, with your audience, rather than, you know, sexuality being more of like a performance and more, you know, there's like a more set standard of what that means, whereas sensuality I think is more rounded in terms of where you can place on there, if you know what I mean.
And didn't I do it for you? Why don't I do it for you? Why don't you do it?
I was like absolutely transfixed. It's like it literally was like you're in a trance between the music and the spinning.
There was no start, like beginning and end. It sort of felt like there was no climax. It just sort of felt like it was the same sort of tension all the way through, and it just like sort of reflected that.
More intimate moments, and it's like this kind of like sense that we're almost like the mirror looking back at you.
I love the mirrors as well.
Yeah,
The
definitely.
voyeurism involved in the mirrors.
Yeah, and I think that's also a big part of like pole dancing.
I don't know, I haven't talked about art in a very long time, and I think kind of switching my brain onto that kind of art language is not always super easy, so I think doing it in this kind of space feels a lot more inviting. It feels like you're caring about the people.
Me again, outfit change. Sorry. Just want to expand on what I said. Earlier I was like, it felt like being told, well, overhearing a secret that I wasn't supposed to hear. I want to expand on that. It's a secret that I know already. And I think it felt as if it were a secret. I was seeing something maybe I usually would not be allowed to see, because the room was full of people who are not trans women, which is kind of what the film is about, really. And there was a big feeling of, I felt a bit worried. The film was so beautiful and intimate that I almost felt nervous being in a room full of people who are not trans women, and how they would receive it, how they would receive Rowan's secret, I guess, which is nowhere near a secret anymore. And I guess my secret too. It's not secret either, look at me. And being next to her parents and her brother, who don't call her, they call her him. It felt like we were being transmitted something really beautiful, and I was worried if they were going to be able to hold it or not. And maybe after the film, maybe it can burrow its way into their minds. family, and then I guess the rest of us too. Yeah, that's all.
Your past work that you presented at your open studio, Sorry I'm Not Here, and this piece, how do you feel like they're connected? Because I feel like we discussed about how you're kind of retaliating against current issues within thematic exhibitions and how exhibitions are treating queer people and trans women. And
I invested in like our relationships to see stuff like that, not just like random people. Like I didn't want to make stuff for the general public, whereas like you know, perhaps it makes you feel special.
because you say pain, and during our little interview, you discussed how a lot of trans women within exhibitions are presented as like always going through pain in such like a present way, but you've presented pain through this like fluidity and your self-pain rather and a celebration of that. So I feel like that's such a nice retaliation against like what's current and how exhibitions are presented, which you've done so perfectly.
I think it's important to me because I think that sometimes it's easier to be more queer or less queer in certain scenarios, and I think that like bringing people from different scenarios is good for me, and being like I'm going to try and be consistent and not like shy about stuff, I think. And so I think that it's people from maybe different social circles, different things like that. I'm sad that my friend Flor couldn't be there because she's known me for ages, but she got the wrong day. That's fine. But yeah, I don't know. I think there's like a mix of social circles here, but there's no like strangers, which is still something I'm thinking about. Because I quite like strangers.
But you've kind of inverted the confession. We're being invited to confess, aren't we?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. There's no priest there. Though.
Okay.
I was kind of
damn it.
I was kind of ready for
Fleabag
that. I want
moment.
someone else.
Doesn't make any difference to me.
And what was just which latex is mine? Ours, I should say.
Yeah.
Do you know which one is it?
It's the one.
Is it that one?
Yeah, it's the triangle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was really nice. I actually enjoyed that. Go and confess later.
Pardon?
Go and confess later.
Yes, I will. I had to be.
Oh.
Oh, hi.
No, you can pay that.
Yeah. If the sun's out, then I didn't even smoke that cigarette.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. How have you been, by the way? I haven't seen you in so long.
It's like a
It's
melody.
been like 2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you're done. Like this is your year, but tomorrow is that it? You're done.
Yeah, I graduated last year. I'm starting.